I do think that that is one of the biggest things, is that people don't understand, which is okay, but then they judge and then they gossip.
Yeah.
And that is hurtful. And
Yeah.
that's why people are scared to come out. And people think it's just about periods and just having pain, but it's not. If you have pain all the time,
Yeah.
and I'm not talking about just mild pain.
Yeah.
As you know, where I'm talking, it felt like they were knives, they were daggers. Somebody stabbing me day and night, day and night, and it's twisting and
Yeah.
twisting in my
So,
body.
so sorry, I'll just interrupt there. So there were a lot of people who talked about different theories of how endo manifests itself in different people. So there's a barbed
Yes,
wire theory, there's a knife theory, and
yes,
there was punching theory. So I have seen it all. For me, the
yeah.
worst was a barbed wire, where I thought that the organs have a barbed wire, and if I move, the wires twist, and then they and I could feel it. I could feel all those things, and it was just so crazy. And so you're talking about like people supporting or people understanding. Like I almost like wonder, like if I not experienced all this, like I don't know if I could have understood it. But like you said,
Hard to understand. I mean, it's not
yeah,
a normal to understand. It's a very strange disease. First of all, it is supposed to, like, it just keeps growing. It just keeps growing. It's kind of like cancer. We were talking about that before.
yeah,
And actually, people who have endometriosis have a higher risk of getting cancer, especially endometrial cancer, cervical cancer. There's all kinds of ovarian cancer, things like that. Gynecological cancers, basically, your risk goes up if you have endometriosis, because your body is producing cells it's not supposed to produce.
yeah,
It's growing in areas it's not supposed to grow.
yeah,
It's like my hair. It just goes in different directions.
yeah,
It doesn't have a straight linear flow. It
yeah,
just sort of goes wherever it wants. So some women, people don't know this, but for some women in my support group, they shared it went into their lungs.
yeah. I've heard
They
of
started
lung.
getting respiratory issues. It went in their kidneys, and believe it or not, it went in my kidneys at one point, and I had a really bad kidney infection. I was in so much pain. And so you don't know where this thing is growing. It's growing in really strange places. It grows in your stomach. It grew in my colon. I've been having digestion issues since then. So it grows in people's bowels.
Yeah,
It can grow anywhere. So it's like, and a tricky thing about it is all they know how to do is laser it. So in the surgery, they do the laser, the laparoscopy, they're lasering.
yeah,
So what you can imagine, when you torch something, you do burn it off.
yeah,
But what I wasn't prepared for after my first surgery was that it leaves the adhesions and the
yeah,
scar tissue. And that is so painful. That's so painful because it's like it's burnt skin.
yeah,
Basically, inside your tissues are
yeah,
very soft. And so when you are trying to heal, that's so painful, and people don't understand that. So after each surgery I've had to do physiotherapy.
yeah,
I've had to, always having a heating pad. I still to this day, because I'm so used to it, having a heating pad or a water
yeah,
bottle, having, your basic things just to be able to sleep, because your body becomes so used to that,
yeah.
you know
So that was, I think you were talking about ablation surgery, if I'm not wrong, or was it excision?
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
now I think a lot more doctors are choosing excision because it's apparently it reduces the risk of getting endometriosis again. But I'll refrain, like I'll not get into the doctor zone. So
No,
I'll
no, that's okay.
keep
That's
it.
okay.
I'll keep it.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
wanted to
So,
also, yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
No,
So,
no, no.
so I wanted to like highlight one of the days when I met you and we talked about, shared our stories. And I know that my one of the most desperate situation I have been in was when I was in an airplane and um, I realized that they don't have plug points, and I didn't like account for the fact that I won't be able to connect my heat pad. And it was only a 2-hour flight, which is not a big deal. And none of the cabin crew understood like how much amount of pain I was in, and I
Oh,
couldn't connect. So that was like a very nightmarish experience for me.
yeah.
And they were all like saying it's a short flight, you'll make it through, and no one was understanding. But finally, I did find someone who agreed to swap seats with me so that I could connect my heating pad so that I could like survive the 2 hours.
Oh
And
my God. Yeah.
but this is when I also had the tumor. So I mean, it
Uh,
was probably not just the endo, but it was the other things as well. So
yeah.
I remember your story as well that you shared in the support group. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So there was a couple of incidences like that, but my second surgery was not planned. It was sort of what happened was it was growing so much, the endometriosis, the tissue, that it had actually wrapped around my right ovary uh, to the point where it actually tore it. So I had a what's called an ovarian torsion. So it was extremely painful, and you just feel like something snapped,
Yeah.
like it tore, like something just ripped up inside and swimming around. So I had to go to the emergency department. I had to get surgery, and that was at St. Joseph's Health Center in Toronto. So, and they were amazing. Actually, they were a really good hospital. And my first experience of surgery wasn't a good one at St. Michael's. There's a lot of things that happened, but they had actually left some tools in me from
What?
that first surgery, and I didn't know. And I tried to make a complaint. It's a long story, but um, it was a disaster. My first surgery was a disaster, and it was really hard to recover because there was still some leftover issues there. But thank goodness for my second doctor, Dr. Mary Melchior. She was a godsend. She was an amazing gynecologist, and she removed as much as she could, and she put me on Mirena for a long period of
Yeah.
time, so just to suppress those hormones. So I still had the one ovary, and I still it wasn't a total hysterectomy at that point. So I was still able to have kids if I wanted to at that point. And this was, like I said, after my divorce, after I moved out, after all of those things. So yeah, but I think it was the stress. I think I was under a lot of stress. I was having a lot of arguments with my husband, and I was stressed out. I was very stressed out working, and I was working long hours. So I did that to myself.
Yeah. But
A lot of it I did
I,
to my.
I don't know how much that may have contributed. Like it might have contributed, but I don't think it caused it, right? Because this, we don't know the cause.
I don't know, for the longest time, because one of the things I did do to try to cope and deal with the stress was I used to run marathons.
Mhm.
So as much as physically I was whatever, my mind and my spirit has always been, I'm just out there. So I was training for a long distance marathon. And again, it's something my husband's like, you don't have your priorities right. What are you doing? And I was like, just leave me alone. I need to do this. So I was, and I was at that time I was drinking lots of these protein shakes, and I was working out like crazy 4 hours a day. I was like, it was insane, but that is still stress on your system.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I didn't think it was. I was like, I just want to feel better. So I just want to exercise. So I worked out all the time. I was eating like all these healthy protein shakes and protein bars and all these things. And
Yeah.
I thought they were healthy, but later I realized that was actually damaging too, because they have tons of gluten, tons of dairy, tons of chemicals in those things. And I was actually making myself sick. I thought by eating all these supplements and health food, and for a little while I felt strong, and I definitely was very muscular. I was very lean at that time, but I was also like, I think all of that stuff combined did maybe contribute to me just
Yeah.
it getting worse. I don't know. I mean,
I,
endo's a weird thing that it's not one reason, but it's
yeah, it's
multiple.
like a million reasons. So the
Yeah.
next thing I want to talk about is not being believed again. So
Yeah.
so to
Actually, just to end off my last sentence,
yeah,
though, we do know 100% there is a genetic component to endometriosis. So we know that. And just like with anything, a gene becomes expressed if there's certain environmental factors
epigenetic,
that are
yeah,
going on. So there are people perhaps in my family who have endometriosis before people were diagnosed. I
yeah,
mean, anything that people are getting diagnosed. So maybe our ancestors, or who knows, they
Yeah,
had it. I think a cousin of mine has endometriosis. Actually, she's been diagnosed. So there is that genetic component, but then with the stress and those other variables,
yeah,
is what makes it happen.
for
Just like
sure.
cancer, cancer is the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that we think that both my grandmothers had it, but it
Mhm.
skipped a generation.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so many other factors. Like, so yeah. So coming back to the next segment, so I want to talk about not being believed. So to begin with, the